One of the things that I think that is just an amazing opportunity right now for us here in San Diego is the fact that San Diego did make that commitment, and they signed into law that by 2035 we will be 100% renewable. And going back on timelines and dates, go back to the 60s, you look at what Kennedy did with the space race, we knew that we could get there, but we weren't sure exactly how we were going to do that, and it took a collaborative effort, global effort, in order to help us get to that point and put somebody on the moon. And so ultimately, as we move forward, San Diego's put a tremendous stake in the ground, because it's not if we're going to get there, it's when we're going to get there, and how we're going to get there now becomes the problem that we all can solve together. So in doing so, we have a tremendous amount of opportunities. We talk about big data, we talk about the Internet of Things, we talk about connectivity and how those all come together to enable a smarter grid and where we are ultimately going to go in the future. But one of the biggest issues that we see, the biggest struggles, particularly in the clean energy future that we're all pushing toward, is really what is the largest target market? And so another statistic is 2008 was the first time in global history that 50% of the world population actually lives in urban areas. Now, fast forward to today, in 2015, or 16? We're in 16 now. 2016, we are now over 60% of the population lives in urban areas. And what does that mean? So you look at cities like San Diego, you look at cities like Manhattan, San Francisco, and so on. We're not going to get there if all we do, not that it's not a good push, if all we do is rooftop residential solar, because that's such a small piece of the market. It's a catalyst, but it's a small piece of the market. And so one of the things that we've done in our company, in Orison, is we've looked at the problem of how do we get to everybody else. And one of the biggest issues that you have is sort of this disconnect. The people who have the means to buy solar and put it on their homes can, and the people who don't, and the divide continues to get greater and greater on how are we going to solve this problem of a completely renewable energy grid. And so we looked at this problem by creating products that can be mailed directly to a customer, they can be self-installed, that they have the ability to be installed in a conditioned space. So not like typical storage where you see it in a garage or a shipping container. We actually brought it in and made it relevant to the community, relevant to the customer, and put it in a way that it fits your specific needs. And one of the ways that we kind of liken this process is if you think about a laptop computer. Well, a renewable world, very similar to that, needs technology that enables us to charge when it's convenient and use it when it's convenient, because the marriage between the two are very, very different, and our current utility grid cannot support that currently today. And so the other piece that we ended up going back to is if you look at big data and how this all comes together, it needs to be networked together, because you can't have a bunch of fragmented systems functioning in a way that is going to help get us to that 100% renewable mark. And so by networking it together, it's seen as storage. It's not seen as storage at Michael's house. It's not seen as storage at whatever commercial facility. It's seen as storage. And the utility now has grid edge capabilities to move in that direction. One of the biggest opportunities that we do have, though, and also one of the biggest challenges, is the fact that we have this perception, and it's been created over a lot of years, that both the utilities see the customer as just their customer. Customers are frustrated with the way utilities are addressing them as a customer and a ratepayer, and ultimately, at the end of the day, they feel at odds against the utility. And so we can't do this if we all start looking at how we're going to do it individually. We need to come together. And so one of the biggest changes and challenges, I think, for this group and here in San Diego to get there is we need to shift policy, and we need to get the utility to understand that what's good for the customer is actually good for the utility, and what's good for the utility is actually good for the customer, so we can collaborate on this effort together in order to address the largest addressable market right now, which is the higher density housing, and they can now become part of that renewable effort.